This podcast is brought to you by So Much to Say, a book of quotes available now on Amazon and all e-readers, and www.craigthewriterstewart.com. So you did Jesus Christ Superstar. How did you get that role? What was your role?
My role in Jesus Christ Superstar was a dancer. And I got that because my friend Camille Brown, she has a company called Camille Brown and Dancers, and I actually danced with her. And it was her first time doing a live TV broadcast. So she asked most of the dancers to be in it. Right. And so it was basically a direct book.
And this was on NBC?
It came on April 1st.
Okay,
Easter.
On NBC.
Yeah.
Okay, and John Legend was a part of the show, was he?
John Legend, he actually played Jesus.
Okay. So, were there any other names that we would...
It was John Legend, Sarah Bareilles, Brandon Victor Ditson.
I like Sarah Bareilles. She was the one that sang that song, I'm not gonna write you a love song, something like that.
You know, I don't know, because like...
You don't know that song?
I just know her from writing Waitress, the musical. Uh-huh. And like, she is a pop star, but right. I don't know all her songs.
Right. I just know that song. That was like her... and then she has this song called Brave or something like that. This is very personal work for me.
Politics.
I believe I was called to tell my story, use my voice, be a voice for the community, to speak to and for a community of people that's been ignored, denied, overlooked.
Religion.
This is my life's work.
Religion.
I want to use words to uplift, heal, inspire, encourage.
Do something different. Every Monday at 10.
Good day, thinkers, thought leaders, progressives, and dreamers. I'm Craig the Writer Stewart, and this is So Much to Say. These are my thoughts in my voice on black shit, white shit, gay shit, and everything in between. Today we are talking to my friend Juel D. He is a choreographer, dancer by nature, by trade. I actually met you in 1998. Did you remember the year?
Lord, yes.
You remembered the year?
Mm-hmm.
I knew the year because I had just moved here. I just graduated from Hampton University, and I was writing for a theater company called YEA, also known as the Freddie Hendrix Youth Ensemble of Atlanta, and you were one of the members, one of the cast members.
Yeah, man. That's actually where I got my initial training from. It was just a space just for us just to be free as young adults and just trying to figure out the world of professionalism, performing arts, and all of that.
So how did you know that you were a dancer? Because, I mean, yes, the ensemble was comprised of singers, actors, dancers, but how did you know that? Because it's one thing to be able to dance, it's another thing to know that you can choreograph.
I think I always wanted to dance, and I started dancing around my house very early. I thought I was on the show Fame when it came out a long time ago. I had no idea what the context of the show was.
Well, you got your Leroy earring on
you know. Shout out to Gene Anthony Ray, who actually played Leroy.
Yeah.
So I used to dance around the house a lot, and it wasn't probably until I got to Tri-Cities and I met
high school.
Yeah. Tri-Cities High School, and I met Freddie Hendrix, and I got involved into YEA, and he had me moving, telling me to move my hips, because he actually knew that I could move, but I was just too shy to do it, because I was like...
And he would say, what, move your hips?
He was like, just move your hips, move your arm, and I was like, okay, but, after a while I got the swing of it, and I was like, this is what I've been I always wanted to do this.
But Tri-Cities was a performing arts school, and he was a drama teacher there. Mm-hmm. And so, there were some really great people that came out of the school, like Candy Burris,
Kenan Thompson,
from Kenan and Kale. But now he's on SNL. And who else did you say?
Saquon Semblo.
Yeah, she had a recurring role on Scandal, the final season. Yeah, Saquon. Yeah. She did a lot on Broadway as well. Aida. But yeah, so YA was just this amazing ensemble, and I remember it was like the first family for me when I first moved here. I didn't really know people here. I didn't know anybody here. I knew like 2 people. What was your next step after YA? Like, how long were you in the company?
Well, it's funny because I always felt like I was coming back and forth. I was 18 at the time. I ended up going to North Carolina School of the Arts.
I remember that.
And it was really hard for me because I was like, I don't want to leave. But I felt like I needed to get an education if I was going to take this dance thing seriously.
Yeah.
But I just remember every summer I would come back and help out with the company, or we would do other productions, and I would teach class and things like that.
So how important is it for people to get an education too? Because a lot of people say, well, that's not really what I want to do. Like, I know what I want to do is rooted in the arts, and that has more to do with experience than going to school.
Yeah, I don't think school is for everybody, but I think I was so determined to learn the language of dance. Like, I had a lot of raw talent, but I couldn't even do the proper execution of things, which I thought I was exquisite in my 18-year-old self. But when I got to school, it was like a rude awakening. But I needed that because I needed to be surrounded with like minds and people who wanted to get a dance education. But it's important, you know, it's important to know your history and just to know, like, why am I doing these steps? So all of that cultivation at school, like, really helped me. And
also, it's important to be, I guess, guided by someone who has more knowledge than you.
Oh yeah, and it's also good to watch too.
And it's also good to watch. So you learned some things other than technique when you were away at school. And so when you came back from school, you came back to Atlanta. You were helping out with YEA. When did you how did you make it like your thing? Like, how did you begin to earn money? Because I think a lot of artists struggle with how to go from working a job and making money from their craft.
Well, I actually, right after school, my senior year, there was a choreographer by the name of Carolyn Dorfman. She came to North Carolina School of Arts. I didn't know anything about her. She had auditions for a company, and she wanted me to audition. The only thing I knew in my head was, like, it's a one-way ticket to New York. Let me get the hell up out of here. And so I danced with her company for about a year, and I was making good money. You know?
So they paid you?
Oh yes, yes. I think that's always the rule of thumb that I learned in school is, like, make sure you have a paying job.
Well, that was the other thing too. Because you went to school, it puts you in front of someone like her who came and saw you. I guess it would be just like the NFL. You may be a great football player or a basketball player, NBA, in the hood, but if you're not in front of the recruiters on a college campus, then, you know, you're not going to be seen.
Yeah, and I think the thing I liked about her is that, you know, she gave me an opportunity, and I did learn a lot because we did start touring. It was like the first time, or maybe the second time I went overseas, but I only danced with her for a year because when you're up in New York at 22 years old, it's like a kid in a candy shop, and it's feel like everything that you learned in school from, like, this choreographer, that choreographer, I was like, well, damn, I really want to dance with them. So I told myself after a year, I need to audition for other things, you know.
What do you mean other things?
Well, like, there were other companies. Like, there was one company I wanted to dance with, one choreographer, his name was Bill T. Jones. I went to his audition. I got cut, which is cool. It happens in the dance world. And there's another choreographer by the name of Ronald K. Brown. And my sister, Camille A. Brown, she was dancing with him at the time. And she said that he needed a guy. You should come to this audition. I went, made it all the way down, got a phone call from him, like, that night, and I was in the company. And I ended up dancing with him for about 6 years.
And they pay?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Listen, this is the thing. You can't, I don't really believe in working for free unless there's a barter system. But
there is a period, though, as an artist, that you have to do some things for free.
And you have to surrender. But it's like you said, it is a period. It can't consistently happen. So there are favors that you can do, like if you're friends with a good choreographer and they're just getting their feet wet and they say, hey, I need a couple of dancers in the space. Do you mind working these many hours? You say, well, okay, well, we're good friends. I believe in their vision. I'm going to work with them. Now, if this good friend started collecting money and they're still using you, at some point you have to say, hey, look.
Well, I'm not even talking about in an instance like that. I'm saying, for example, like this guy that you just said. What's the choreographer's name?
Ronald K. Brown.
Okay, so say, for instance, he said, listen, I think you're really good. I think you're really dope. But I only have 10 positions that are paid and I have 15 that are not paid. And I want you for one of the 15 unpaid positions.
Again, that is you. You have to think smart. And
because again, if he's who you say he is, then that would behoove you to get the knowledge, get the exposure. Because I believe that every door that opens for you, it leads to something. It can lead to something else. Now, I'm not saying you let somebody abuse you and take advantage. But I think that sometimes people think that when you're trying to get your feet wet and you're trying to gain wisdom and experience, sometimes you have to bite the bullet and figure out, a revenue stream someplace else. You might need to hustle, get your little fast food job or whatever, but be able to really put your time, energy, and effort in gaining that wisdom. And then when you get that experience under your belt, then you might want to say, oh, well, I've already trained with
Ronald K. Brown.
Right, and so I'm not doing anything for free.
Sure,
now.
I think that's great, but you know, when you're in New York City and you're paying rent, and you know, I don't want a fast food job. I don't want to cook burgers, which is no disrespect to anybody who do it, but it's like I was like, I got to pay bills, and
Right.
I knew that this was a paying job because we were taught you want to get a paying job.
So how did you? But everybody can't get a paying job.
No, absolutely. But I'm just saying from my experience, like.
And in the words of Denzel, you have to do what you.
You have to crawl before you walk.
Well, right, but
Yeah.
in the words of Denzel, he said, "You do what you have to do until you can do what you want to do."
Sure.
But go ahead. So how did you find your place? You got to New York.
Yes, I got to New York. Dance would run for about 6 years. After those 6 years, I decided to move back to Atlanta.
So the first woman, her company took you to New York.
Yes, So that was Carolyn Dorfman, and I only danced with her for a year.
So where were you living during this time?
Okay, here we go. So I started doing couch surfing. I mean, sorry,
Okay.
not couch surfing, but just staying on people's couches.
Well, that's couch surfing.
I guess it's the same thing.
You trying to pretty it up?
No. Like, yeah. I'm trying to think about it now. Yeah, I actually stayed with some friends, and some friends I knew from school. So they were like, hey, you can sleep in my living room, X, Y, and Z. And then it got to a point where I had to end up either paying them something.
Right.
So I was working and paying for that. And then
Where
eventually.
were you working, though? With Carol or something else?
No, I was still working with Carolyn Dorfman, but I was saving my money so I can get my own spot.
So did you ever have to work a part-time gig or something?
This is the thing. Sometimes with touring companies, like you're rehearsing for like 5 hours
So you
a
really
day.
don't
So
have the
I didn't
time.
have time. So
Right.
me going to rehearsals and coming back home, it's like you wake back up and you do it all over again. Companies are not as thriving as they used to.
Right.
So there's a lot of independent projects, so you don't get the revenue that you want. So in that time, it was just about me saving my money, staying with friends until I was able to get on my feet. But what was scary is that after that year, there was a 2 months grace period where I didn't have nothing. So my friends were still gracious enough to let me stay on their couch.
So, like, how long did you stay with one friend?
For about a year.
Okay. And you paid nothing?
No, I paid something, but
Okay.
like even if it was like
The
groceries,
utility. Right.
light bill or something like that.
Right.
It was something.
Right. So they had full-time jobs.
Yeah.
These were people that had jobs, like not like...
It's the artist life. Some of them didn't have full-time jobs. Some of them are okay. So here's the thing. Sometimes as a dancer, you can have a part-time job, but you also can freelance. And what freelance means is that, I'm going to work with this choreographer. They don't have a lot of money, but it still ignites my passion. I was in an apartment with artists.
So it was, how many of you in one apartment?
It was 3.
A one-bedroom?
1 bedroom.
New York size one-bedroom?
New York size. Now, the 2 people I was living with, they were a couple.
So it was you and the two of them?
Uh-huh.
And so New York size apartment is probably like the size of my living room.
Small as hell, yes. It's like a little matchbox. And so imagine that with a sheet over the living room, which was my room.
Where your area was.
Yes.
And you probably didn't have central air conditioning.
I did not, no.
Yeah, I know New York well. Yeah. So it was hot. So this is a part of what you're working towards. I believe that, your success is on the other side of your sacrifice. So the question is, what are you willing to sacrifice to get to that success? Okay, so you stayed with one set of friends. How long did you stay with them? For about a year, and then?
For about a year, and then I had like a 2 months grace period. And in those 2 months, that's when I got my job with Ronald K. Brown. And in that moment, I said I didn't want to live here anymore. So
so this job is paying more.
It's paying more.
Is it double?
It's double, but still, New York rent is not cheap.
And to see in New York, you have to do first and last month's rent, maybe.
Sure.
Or a broker fee or something, unless you sublet under somebody.
Yes.
Okay, so what happened?
So I end up going further down in Brooklyn, Coney Island.
Ooh.
Which I was like, why the hell did I go down there? But I had a friend I went to school with. She had just, her 2 roommates left. And so she didn't have nobody to stay in those rooms. So I was like, in that case, I'd have to pay no broker's fee. I just
Right. You just
come
moved in, yeah.
And so I moved with her and another friend, which was D Woods.
Okay, from Danity Kane.
Yeah, so
okay. Well, you know, I know her from YEA as well.
So
I know her as Juanita.
Yeah, me too.
I got a quick story. Then I'm gonna let you finish. One day I was over at Justin's restaurant on Peachtree Street. This is when Puffy had Justin's restaurant still here. And the group they had already done Making the Band.
Yep.
She had already cut her hair, like the little asymmetrical haircut. It was slanted. And I was a fan of the show. I was a fan of the show. I had watched them put together Danity Kane with the what's the boy group?
Day 26.
Day 26. I watched all of that. I was a fan of the show. Had no idea that was Juanita.
Yeah.
And so, even watching the show, I didn't even know that was the same girl from YA because she was so quiet and so meek. And I knew her from YA as a dancer, not as a singer. She was a dancer. And so I was at Justin's one night, and she was there with her family, or whomever she was there with, celebrating something. They had dinner, and I walked in, and I was on my way to an event in like that private room, and I'll never forget. She was walking right to. I knew who she was right away from the TV show. Still hadn't made the connection that this is the girl from YA that I used to write for.
Oh yeah.
And so she's walking towards me. And I'm clear that this is the girl from Danity Kane. I'm like, why is she walking towards me smiling? And she reaches out and she hugs me, and it wasn't until she started talking that it clicked.
That's Juanita.
I was like, Juanita!
yeah.
It was so crazy. I said, do you know I've been watching this show and had no clue that it was you? But she came to life. She came to life. She was so quiet in YA.
She's the one that has like tricks up her sleeve.
I know.
She can do everything.
Right.
So
okay, so you're living in an apartment in Brooklyn.
We're down in Coney Island. I'm living with my friend Kristen and with D Woods, aka Juanita.
Okay.
And
so what year is this? Because this is before she did Making the Band then.
Yes. This is 2000. No, this is 2004.
Okay.
2004.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think at the time she had just graduated from NYU.
Juanita.
Yeah.
Oh, D Woods.
D Woods just graduated from NYU. So we were living in freaking Coney Island, which was like bum far. Like it was like a 45-minute subway ride, which was like ugh.
Right.
So yeah. So we did that actually for about a couple of months, and until we moved into Harlem.
Okay. So was it in Harlem that she went to Making the Band?
Here's the thing. So when we were in Harlem, she had to be with us for a couple of months, and there was a period where she just disappeared.
Okay.
And she said she was going out of town to do some things, and I was like, okay. And I remember one time, I think we had to like switch rooms. I had like another friend that was coming in. And so she called me. And she said, hey, Juel, I need for you to come to Washington Square Park. I was like, okay, sure. So I get down there, and I'm like, why did she tell me to come down here? I was like, what's happening? All I know is this swarm of women, like, just coming down. Like they're coming down. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, cameras. And I'm like, and I see her in, like, a halter. And I'm like, she's beat for the guys. They're dancing and singing for money. I was like, what is going on? And so then she finally told me, she was like, well, I'm doing a show. It's a reality show. I just thought I would, just do it. And I was like, okay. But I had no idea it was going to like take off and like she was going to be in the group.
So what was this, like a casting call or something? What was this?
No, I think in that time period where she disappeared, I guess they had already done like the casting and everything. And I think it was already like maybe the 20 girls.
The last few that they were going to choose.
And so in that time period, they were taping the show and I had no idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you moved to Harlem.
We moved to Harlem, 129th and Lenox. Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah, you're right there by Sylvia's and the Apollo.
Yes. And so at that time, it was not only my friend Kristen and D Woods, but we had another roommate, Gemma. So it was 4 people living in an apartment because Harlem.
One bathroom.
Yes.
Jesus.
But it was a beautiful apartment. Beautiful, beautiful long hallways.
Did you have so it was just one bedroom though? Like
no, we all had a bedroom.
But it was just one bathroom.
One bathroom.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happened after you were working with this particular dancing company?
Well, at the time I was still dancing with Ronald K. Brown, and in that 6 years I had moved from Coney Island to Harlem, and I ended up staying in Harlem until like it was time for me to dissolve with the company. So
how long were you with that company?
6 years.
And so then what did you do after that?
I ended up moving back to Atlanta.
Okay.
And the reason why I ended up moving back to Atlanta is because I wanted to branch off into like choreography and to teaching. And at this time, like this is like around 2007, 8. And so I had already made up in my mind that I wanted to come home and just kind of get familiar with the dance scene here and just kind of choreograph and yeah.
What was your next big break after that particular dance company?
Well, branching off into choreography, my big break was choreographing for Atlanta Ballet.
Okay.
And that was in 2012.
So that was about 4 years after you got back to Atlanta.
But see, this is the thing. In between that, you know, I was going to Atlanta, but I was traveling.
Because you were going to like North Carolina.
I went back to North Carolina School of the Arts and I started teaching for a couple of years. And just going back and forth. Like I had just had this whole thing where I was just teaching and bouncing back from Atlanta to North Carolina, going back up to New York.
But during this time, like, were there ever moments that, because for me, this conversation is about the life of an artist. Like, were there ever times or moments that you got so discouraged that you thought, you know, maybe this just isn't going to happen where I can really live well and take care of myself? Were there moments where you felt like maybe maybe I had a great run, maybe it was great while it lasted, but I need something that's going to sustain me because I'm getting older?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's why I got into teaching at North Carolina School of Arts because one, it was a steady paycheck, and even while I was doing that, I had like just downfalls. Like I don't know what I'm doing. Like this is cool, but I don't want to teach every day.
Right.
And but what I started to like realize in the moments where I was like, I don't know what the hell is going on, I started to try to be practical and try to figure out how creative I can be, and that's probably what led me to dance on films and started creating my own films because I was bored. Which I do love to teach, but there are moments where you're not doing anything. You're like, I could be dancing, I could be choreographing, I don't know what to do. So when you're at an art school or you have friends that are in the arts, you know, it was just a matter of me saying, hey, let me reach out to this cinematographer. Let's see if we can create something, you know. And I think,
and then when you're working for a school, you have a certain curriculum that you have to follow. So it's not like you can always be extra creative and go outside of the boundaries that they've outlined for that semester or school year or whatever.
Yeah, because you're constantly working in the school and like your purpose is there for the students.
Right.
And so they do give you like a little leeway for you to be an artist, but you know, it can't like be for long periods of time.
Right. So you started reaching out to freelance photographers or videographers and putting your stuff on film.
Well, I actually reached out to my friend who's a cinematographer, and he actually went to school with me, and we just started creating, you know. I just kind of created like a narrative because I guess what people have to realize is that dance on film isn't new. It's been around for years, and I just thought, well, let me just take a stab at it.
What do you mean dance on film? Just putting yourself on camera, or?
You put yourself on camera, but you create these narratives where it's a story. So
beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah. So this particular story was called Just Another Day, and it was just about ordinary people. And I wanted to focus on the art of how we naturally move, because people always say, "Well, I'm not coordinated," but what people don't realize is that when you brush your teeth, you are actually doing movement.
It's a rhythm.
Like so I wanted to focus on things like that. So that was the overall arc of that. And I just got some friends that were living in North Carolina. I was like, look, you want to do this? You know? And going back to that first question, yes, I didn't have a lot of money to pay them, but I gave them something. And they actually were like, we want to see the finished product and we believe in what you're doing.
Well, because the key is, and what I've always realized from the time that I moved here, the key is to network laterally. You need to network with people that are on your level, not try to reach out. That would have been like you trying to reach out to Jameson over at Alvin Ailey. Isn't that her name? The former,
Judith Jameson.
Judith Jameson.
Yeah.
The former artistic director. Like you need to network on your level. That would have been like when I first started off writing. I started off writing music. It would have been like me trying to reach out to a Missy Elliott. No, you reach out to the people that are right there at your same level. This is whatever you're doing. Like, I think you need to network at your level and not try to reach people who have far exceeded what you do, because they don't have time to reach out to you. They don't have time to try to help you. And if this is your dream, if this is your goal, then you have to do the work to get yourself to that point where those people are that you're trying to reach. And so you networked with people that were...
People who went to school with me.
Right. So they were videographers or photographers or whatever.
Dancers, videographers, and just people that you know, because and being at North Carolina School of the Arts, like, we had those resources while I was there as a teacher, so I was able to like kind of access things that were around me.
Right.
So
okay, so what was your end goal? Like, once you got this dance on film, what was the end goal? To post it? Was to promote it on YouTube or social media? Like, what was the goal? Was it to use it as a reference tool for something, like if you were going to audition, or like, you know, like actors put together a reel? So was it for something like that?
Well, the first end goal was just to fulfill like my creative curiosity, and then once I fulfilled that, it actually got mentioned in Dance Magazine, which is a wonderful magazine that mentions a lot of dance that is going on in the world. For me, it was just about what else can I do with this? Because that was the main question, like, well, what's next? What's next was just trying to capitalize on it a little bit more.
Because as an artist,
because it's another job. Like, you know, if you can't dance, you know, okay, well, maybe I can be an administrator. Okay, well, maybe I want to get into this creative thing. You know what I'm saying? So it was just another tier into what I want, what I do as a creative.
Right. And as a creative, you're always asking yourself, okay, what's next? So much so that I started to embed it in my prayers. God, what is it that you'll have me do next? What should I be doing next? Like, show me what's next. What are the next best steps? Those are the things that I kind of incorporated in my prayers now. But I think that what often distracts people who are trying to become a choreographer or trying to become an artist or a writer or whatever, is they always say, well, I don't know where to begin. But the thing is, if it comes to you naturally, all you have to do is do it, whatever that is. If you're a writer, then you need to be writing. Like, when I sat down to write my first book, I didn't sit down with the knowledge that I was going to write a book. There was just something on my heart, mind, and my spirit that I needed to release. And so as I started writing it, I continued writing. And before I knew it, it was 337 pages in a book. So I didn't set out to write a book. I have people saying to me all the time, oh, I want to do a book of poetry, or I want to do this. I don't know where to begin. Just take the first step, because for every step that you take for yourself, God will take 3 for you. And once you create whatever it is that you do, whether it's the dance on film or whatever, a demo because you're singing, once you release that art, once you create that art, it will lead you. It will go where it needs to go. The people who need to hear it will hear it. The people who need to see it will see it. And the people who need to read it will read it.
No, absolutely. I think that is one of the biggest goals, because you're constantly reinventing yourself, and you're trying to find new ways to add to the conversation of your artistry. And for me, I've always been like that. You know, I've never been the one to like kind of place myself in one particular box. It was like, well, let me just do all these things, because if I don't get them out, that's part of the reason why I did leave the dance company, because I wanted to like, let me just see if I can figure this shit out on my own. You know what I'm saying? And not get to a certain age where I'm saying, oh man, I wish I could have did that. It was like, let me do it now.
Right.
You know what
because
I mean?
The goal for you may not have been to create your own dance company, or the goal for you may not have been to try to go dance for Alvin Ailey. I think a lot of times when we find ourselves in a specific industry, we think that our goal is to get in touch with, you know, like for me, like people have said to me so many times, oh my God, you need to send your books to Oprah. Like, why do I need to send them to Oprah? Now, I'm not saying that it wouldn't be amazing for her to read it and to mention the books, but what I'm saying is my only goal is to get my books to the people. If the people read it, if Oprah is meant to read the books, they will fall in her hands. If you spend more of your energy trying to get the books to Oprah, then you're not doing the energy of promoting and marketing your book to the masses. And that's what I was trying to tell my mom and like all of the people. They're like, well, did you send the book to Ellen? What about Gail? Maybe Gail can get it to Oprah quicker. But my thing is, I'm promoting it to the people. And I just feel like if it's meant to be, the universe will take care of that. I don't have to spend my energy and time and effort, because then you're not doing anything else. And I think that that's the part that people miss. Whether you're chasing your dream as an entrepreneur, like I literally saw something on social media the other day. They showed, it was a picture of a young girl, I think she's 26, it says she's the youngest Chick-fil-A franchisee. And I was looking in the comments, I was on Instagram. I was looking in the comments, and all I saw, all of these people were saying, oh my God, I need to get in touch with her. Ooh, can she tell us how she did it? But my thing is, figure that shit out. Like, a lot of times people just want you to hand it to them. They want you to write it down in the manual and say, here's how I did it. Here's every step that I took. But nobody's steps are going to be a carbon copy. Nobody's steps are going to be identical. And so all you have to do is create your own path. And that's what I try to do with this podcast. I try to bring on entrepreneurs and artists and that kind of thing to tell you how they did it, just to kind of inspire you. Maybe it will trigger something. But your path is going to be completely different. There might be some similarities, but...
And there's so many things that are like in the palm of our hands, like social media.
Social media.
But the thing about it, everybody don't know how to use social media.
Don't.
Because sometimes people will post these lovely pictures on there, but then in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, can you really sing? Can you really dance? You know what I'm saying? And so, like, people think that, oh, they're going to like my pictures. This is going to be, like, instant fame.
Right,
and it's like, no. Like, there's a process. Like, you got to be strategic. When you're on that thing, you got to figure out, how can I brand myself, be very authentic. Like, this is me. Who you see here, I can back it up 10 times more.
But you know why people don't usually try to figure out how to do that? Is because they're too busy trying to get their product or their page announced on a bigger page. Oh, if I could just get the Shade Room to post this video of me doing this, or if I could just get such and such. But you don't have to, like, create your own platform. Like you said, you have iTunes. If you're an artist, you can put your music out on iTunes. You don't have to have a record deal. You can put your music on SoundCloud. You can put it on YouTube. There's so many avenues for people to find your content, to find your work, whatever it is. Not just singing. Whether you're a writer. That's why I'm trying to put together this audio book for how to self-publish a book, because people keep asking me, they tear my inbox up. Well, how did you do it? How can I do it? Can you tell me how to do it? Can you read my book? I don't read people's work because one, I'll be too distracted. I wouldn't get my own stuff done. That's one. Two, that's the easiest way to get sued. I could be working on something right now, and because you send me your manuscript and then I put my book out next year, you think that I stole your idea or your concept. But the thing is, the same way that I figured it out, you can figure it out. We have the internet, the World Wide Web. That's the fastest way to find anything. Google whatever it is that you're looking for. And then as you start to take the steps and you start to create this momentum, your friends and strangers will start to take notice of what you're doing, and they will push you. They will start to help you because they see you consistently working on whatever it is that you do.
But again, I always tell people it's about the process.
It is the process.
And people can't rush it. And, like, you know, we do live in a generation where we want it like now.
Right now,
but, you know, like, if it's all about your work, and I think your work speaks to, like, your level of success. People always say, well, you have to have these things to be successful, but it's like, if I'm putting in the work and I'm doing it and I'm getting fulfillment, then that's my level of success.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. That's the reward, not getting the money. Getting the money is not the reward. The reward is that you're actually doing what you say you love to do. And part of the process sometimes means going home, staying at home so you can save your money and focus on your craft and whatever it is that you do. Because everybody's not going to be fortunate to couch surf. I was fortunate to couch surf a few times too. And while I was couch surfing, I was writing. I was creating. I was doing trailers for television shows. Like, I was doing all of that stuff. Creating my greeting card business. So you're not just couch surfing and not doing anything. Like, you're actually doing the work. Yeah,
that's true, because I always tell my students now, there's nothing wrong with a 9 to 5. Like, I think people get this thing where, like, let me move to New York because I'm going to get a job right away. And it's like, get you a 9 to 5 so you can pay your rent. You can pay whatever. And then on your free time, that's when you become an artist. Or, like, just kind of, like, managing all that at the same time. But don't go anywhere, whether that's L.A. or, you know, just get your 9 to 5.
You have to have a way to be able to take care of your day-to-day.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have a way to create or to take care of your day-to-day, then you're going to be frustrated. And you're going to be so frustrated that you're not going to be able to create anyway. Because you're going to be worried about how you're going to buy food. You're going to be worried about how you're going to pay rent or where you're going to stay, or even down to buying toiletries. I remember there were times that my money was so tight because I made the mistake of deciding too soon that I was either going to work a job or be an artist. And I said, I'm going to be an artist. I'm not going to work this job. But it was in time. Like, you'll know when it's time for you to step out there completely. And doesn't mean that when you do that it's going to be easy at that point, because there's still going to be ebbs and flows. But like, I made the decision because I was like you, young, 22. I had just moved here. And I was like, fuck this job. I ain't going to this job. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I got to that point because I felt like the job was in the way. But then I found that most of the days that I was home, I was so vexed and overwhelmed with financial stuff that I couldn't even think long enough to be creative anyway. So I may as well have taken my ass to a job. You have to be able to take care of your day-to-day. You have to have some money coming in to be able to feel good about yourself and not be overwhelmed and consumed with day-to-day stuff.
Yeah, and like, even if it's not like a 9 to 5, if you know you're good at taking pictures, or you know you're good at like fixing up Instagram stuff, or like, use all that to your advantage.
Yeah, you just have to have a revenue stream.
Yeah, and have people like say, well, you can pay me this or that, so that way you have some kind of income, with some kind of way to not just sit around and be waiting,
And part of the process too, I found, is having those moments where there's a lull, where nothing is happening. You know what I mean? Like you said, there was a 2-month period before you went to that second dance company. Like, there was nothing there, but that's a part of the process, because there are so many lessons in that still moment for you. It was that 2-month period. Those are those moments for you to reevaluate.
And it's scary because you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Because sometimes in those 2 months, you can be going to audition after audition after audition, and nothing happens. You're like, what am I going to do?
But when nothing is happening, that's when you're supposed to go internally. I've learned that now. That's when you go internally, and that's when you become your most creative, because nothing is going on. That's all by design. That's all intentional. I have a friend who's an actor, and he just moved here. He's been staying with me. And he moved here from across the country. He has a little job, you know what I mean, just to keep some money coming in. He had money saved when he moved here. Yeah. And he has these auditions, and he's only had one, I think he's had one role, but he's only been here since January.
So that's a start.
Yeah. But my thing is, what I said to him the other night, because he came home the other night all vexed, and see, I know this feeling because I've been there. And he's looking at me like, oh my God, your books are doing so well, and da-da-da. But it wasn't always that way. There were moments where you have to take time to live too. And I told him, I said, you have to step back. I said, you're trying to manipulate the dream. You're trying to control it. You're trying to manage it. You got to take your hands off of it.
You cannot map.
You got to take your hands off of it.
Micromanage that bad.
No, you've done your part. You're going to these auditions. You're putting the energy out there, and I believe that the energy that you put into the world, it has to come back. It's like a boomerang. It has to come back. It may not come back when you want it to come back, and it may not come back in the audition or the form that you want it to come, but it'll come back. You just have to keep going.
I was going to say, that's why it's good to stay consistent and
you gotta be
persistent, because I run across people sometimes where they feel like they've done these big things and they're like, well, I've done that. What's next? I'm like, well, shoot, you can do it again.
Right. Because what they think is there's a checklist. Well, I've already done that. I moved across the country. Yeah. I said, right, now you got you a job so you can live. I said, you could be living in your car.
Yeah.
You could be living in your car, but you're not. I said, but you are still getting auditions because there's somebody sitting around wishing they had the auditions to go on.
Or just the guts to go to one.
Exactly. Yeah. I said, but this is honing your craft. Every time you audition, it's not always about you booking the job. This is about you honing the craft. And that's what I realized. I learned that lesson so many years ago. It took me a minute. The lesson was in front of me, but I hadn't absorbed it, and so I kept repeating that lesson. And so I'm going to tell you, when I really finally got the lesson, I had released my first book. And when I released my first book, I had announced that this first book was coming. The very first reading that I did, it was standing room. Then I went home. It was in Atlanta, and then I went home, did one in Baltimore. I saw people from my middle and elementary school. It was a line. Mm-hmm. Then I ended up getting down to a signing where there were only about 6-7 people. So I done went from a line in standing room to about 6-7 people. I was like, oh my God. And my mom happened to be at that signing with me. This was in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. And my mom was just like, she knew that I was feeling a kind of way about it. And she said to me, well, I hope you're not upset about the turnout. She said, because the conversation was really good. She said, in fact, the conversation here was even better than some of the other ones where you had all of those people. She said, because the people here were so engaged. You were able to spend so much more time with them. Mm-hmm. And then what about that young boy? Because it was a young boy. He wandered into this bookstore. I had done it at this bookstore in Philadelphia. And he just came in to get some of the little free condoms on the side. And long story short, he overheard me talking and reading, so he stayed behind. And he shared his story with me. He was telling me that his mom had put him out because she found out he was gay. He was in college. She stopped paying for his education. She put him out. Then she called her sister, which was his aunt, told them that he was gay and not to deal with him. So he didn't have anybody. So he was homeless. And essentially, he started living with this strange man that he met one day, and he was basically staying with the man in exchange for sex. So we ended up having this conversation. So my mom brought all of that to me. She said, look at what happened. Look at this. She said, you can't be discouraged by that. And so I started to look at the intent, and I reminded myself, Craig, if you said that you really want this to be about reaching, teaching, and healing people, then you can't be discouraged if it's only 5 people at the run. That's when it changed me.
That's really interesting. I think that's one of the reasons why I went into teaching, because teaching teaches you patience, and it teaches you a lot about yourself. And I had told myself, if I ever had the opportunity, I am going to teach these young boys like what it's really like just telling them like what they need to do as a performer. And it just brings me joy when I see students doing the work. And like I always say, well, I was a part of that. I think that's like the biggest reward you can get. Yeah.
And I think that when you have all of those things at play, that's when the universe rewards you and moves you to the next level.
Which is crazy, because since you're talking about that, I got the opportunity to teach for Ailey too a couple of years ago.
Alvin Ailey?
Yeah. And so this was like the second company, and Troy Powell is the artistic director. So I would teach for Ailey too all the time, and I was like, well, you know what? Let me just send him my choreographic stuff so he'll like it.
But think about if you hadn't put together that stuff.
But what's crazy is
you
that
wouldn't have had it to send.
I never got a response back. I was like, dog, man. So fast forwarded to like maybe 2016. Robert Battle, the artistic director of Ailey, he has a lab where it gives choreographers an opportunity to just work with the students and work with things. Troy came to that. So they saw my work. A couple of months later, they was like, do you want to choreograph on the company? I was like, okay, this is happening. But all that teaching and like film and everything just kind of like
it all worked together.
Full circle, like stay the course, stay patient, it will happen. It may not happen right now, but if you stay consistent, it will come.
Right. And I think with anything, if I can, my last words on this would be, if I could offer anything to an artist or an entrepreneur, you have to trust your instincts. I think oftentimes we get so distracted with the voices in the world that we don't get to hear, that it drowns out the voices in our head. And I personally think that still voice that you hear, that's your conscience, your subconscious, that gut feeling, that's God speaking directly to you. And I think oftentimes it gets crowded by all of your fear, but then also your mom saying, well, how are you going to do that? Or your friends saying, oh, how are you going to do that? Oh, girl, I don't think that's a good idea. Or, boy, I don't think that's a good idea. And it's not always about people hating. I think sometimes there is hate. Sometimes people don't want to see you get further. But I think more times than not, it's people who care about you and they don't want you to make a misstep. Especially like with your mom. Like my mom used to tell me as a writer, I used to tell her I'm a writer. I was telling her this in college and I was moving to Atlanta. And she said, boy, you better go and get a job with a 401k. She said, that's a hobby. But look now. You know what I'm saying? Like now she sees the vision. But you have to be able to trust your instinct. And that's with anything. And like your instincts will guide you every step of the way. There is no roadmap. There's no correct way or wrong way. You just have to trust your instincts and be very persistent.
It's like almost like your internal blueprint that you have for yourself, and you have to trust that. And that's what got me so much further. And I'm still like on that path. And like I always tell people, like I haven't got to a point where I feel like I'm this shit.
I've arrived.
It's like no, I'm still trying to like up myself even more.
But I don't think you'll ever feel like you've arrived. Like I wonder that about Oprah. Does she feel like she's arrived? Now, granted, she's rich, But do you ever feel like that? Because if she did, she wouldn't be doing all of this stuff that she does. Why would she need to do a network? Why would she still produce film? Mm-hmm. Why would she still go around the country telling people to live their best life? Like if it was really about feeling like you've done it all, she would go somewhere and sit down.
Stop. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's about just wanting more and wanting to just challenge yourself even more. It's like once you get the buzz or whatever that spark is, you want to keep going with that, and you want to figure out how can I create other entities from this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Again, it goes back to what I was saying before too. It's like, what's my next step? God, what is my next best step? Guide my feet, direct me, use my words, use my gift, use my life, use my light. So where does your creativity come in terms of a social life or dating life?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Now we're getting somewhere. It's interesting because it used to be, I don't have time because I'm really busy. And the only reason I would say that because I do travel a lot. And I think sometimes people don't understand it. They think, okay, so you'll be back for 2 days. I'm like, no, I may be gone for 3 months, or I may be gone for a couple of weeks. And so I don't think dating is hard, but I think you have to be smart about it. And I think it's about communicating with that particular person. The last person I dated, and I never think as dates or relationships as failures. Mm-hmm. It's always something to kind of teach you more about yourself. Mm-hmm. But it's just about taking the time. I think it's hard to date another artist. Just in my opinion.
So how long have you been single?
Ooh, child. Honestly, I've been single for a while, but I've had dates here and there, and usually, my dates last about the 4 to 6 month time span, and I'm okay with that. I just think for me, my schedule is always hectic, and it just takes a very special person who really gets you. And I think that person is out there, somebody who can genuinely connect with you and want to see you win and want to.
I think it takes a special person to love an artist. Yeah. Because first of all, we're just eccentric and we don't work a 9 to 5. And so sometimes my phone...
Schedule is unpredictable.
Yeah, schedule is unpredictable. And sometimes my phone is ringing or emails are coming through. I'm checking emails at 2 a.m. Mm-hmm. And I don't need you looking over saying, well, who is that? What are you doing? You understand what I'm saying? It's just a different kind of thing. And I don't think everybody can handle being with someone who really, truly is doing what they were called to do. It's one thing to go and work a job, but it's another thing to really follow your life's passion and to do your life's work. Mm-hmm. Because those hours are unorthodox.
But I do think that person is out there.
That person is out there.
I haven't met them yet. But, at some point I will. But in the meantime, in between time, dating is fun.
But dating is interesting, too, because, see, you may be gone for 3 months at a time, but the reality is this. Dating should be a slow burn. See, y'all so used to microwave.
No. I'm on the cusp of that microwave and that slow cook, but I believe in taking, again, the magic word is process, taking your time. Right. I am a believer of taking my time. I know we are all over the place and we like to take our times and we don't like to be rushed. Right. So,
No, we don't. I don't like to be rushed. No. Now, my cousin used to actually say to me, she used to say, you always like the ones you gotta chase. She said, you don't ever like the ones that like you. Ooh. She said, why is that? And I said, what are you talking about? And I thought about it. She said, look, what about this one? And what about that?
Nope.
Right. I think it's I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think it's an ego thing for me. I think I have to feel like I've won the prize. That I had to work for it. You know what I'm saying? I guess if you just right there and you calling me and you... Now, not once I'm in it. Once I'm in it, yes, I want you to show interest and stuff like that. And, I'm not saying that, but But in terms of your thing, when you're talking about dating and you might be gone for 3 months at a time, but that can make it interesting. Because if the person is able to come to you, I don't know if you're able to sometimes come back to visit, but if they're able to come to you and, it allows you to really get to know the person and them to get to know you because you're not in each other's company.
All the time. I think it just takes strong communication and really knowing where you guys stand.
But I think a huge part of it too is the qualities that often draw people to you are often the same qualities that make them insecure. So sometimes a person is so excited that you're an artist. Oh my God, he's a dancer. He's working he's teaching classes at Alvin Ailey and da-da-da-da. But then they can't really handle you on a regular Tuesday. When you're like, oh, I'm at rehearsal and I'm going to be here until 11 o'clock at night. You know, they're like, well, are you really at rehearsal? Like that kind of thing. Like you fell in love with this whole ambition thing. But now that we're in the thick of it, you're looking at me like, I can't really deal with this. I need a little more time.
Well, that's why I think boundaries should come into place. Like saying, look, you know, we got to set some boundaries to say, you know, I'm gone, you know, blah, blah, blah. Whatever happened in the meantime, like that needs to be discussed out on the table. So nobody gets hurt. Nobody is insecure. Nobody is trying to wait by the phone and say, are you going to call me?
But the thing is, you can't really manage somebody's expectations or their insecurities because I can't cure your insecurities. Because like, for example, if we're together and I'm calling you and letting you know and I'm touching base, I'm keeping lines of communication up. Hey, babe, I'm at rehearsal. Or hey, babe, I got a book signing. Or hey, I got to fly out of this. You know, I'll be back tonight or, you know, whatever. I could be doing all of that. But if you come to this relationship with insecurities, I can't cure that.
That's right.
A relationship doesn't cure insecurities. Like that's something that's your work that you have to do before you get to me, preferably.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's also too. It's like I always ask myself. I was like, what am I projecting out in the world?
What do you mean?
Because sometimes, like whatever you're projecting, I feel like you can get that in a date or somebody that you want to hold space with, and you're like, And especially if it keeps happening, if it's the same pattern.
Well, that's a pattern.
If it's the same
you
pattern,
do have
then
to step
then
back
it's like,
and look.
ooh, you got to up your standards a little more.
Oh, I'm there. That's why he's single. Because listen, I used to confuse, and I say this all the time. I used to confuse compromise with settling.
Yep.
There are things that you can compromise: paint color, where we go to dinner, where we gonna go for vacation, things like that. But in terms of my boundaries and what I expect in a relationship and moral value and boundaries, I can't compromise those. Those are boundaries. So it is what it is.
Yep. So in the meantime, I'm enjoying being single.
So what do you have coming up? Can you tell us? Is there anything coming up that we should look out for?
I actually have a piece on the second company of Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. It's called Touch and Agree. And I also have another piece called How to Kill a Ghost, which is on Dallas Black Dance Theater. So those pieces are currently on tour right now.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So what cities, where can we find the details? Is there a website?
If you go to alvinailey.org and you go to dallasblack.com. And you'll be able to find where these pieces have legs and where they're going.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, thank you for coming on and sharing with the people your story and how to stick to their passion and run to their dreams, if you will. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, please hit the subscribe button. I don't know if you're listening in SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Stitcher, YouTube. Wherever you listen to a podcast, we're there. Just make sure you hit the subscribe button so that each and every Monday when we drop a brand new show at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, you will get the notification. The show's archived, so you don't have to listen to them right at 10 a.m., but they'll always be there for you because, again, they archive. Be sure to share this podcast with your friends, your family, your social media. That's how we grow. All right? Be safe. Keep loving yourself.